turned
Le
into a
sable
tale of
tremble,
daring,
le
cunning,
ciel
and
brûle,
unrelenting
et l'Afrique
pursuit.
retient son souffle.
The military regimes
4000
in
soldats
Mali,
russes
Niger,
viennent de poser
and
le pied
Burkina
au Mali,
Faso have
pas
all
des
had
formateurs,
difficulty
pas des
containing the
invités,
violence in the
des
Sahel.
hommes prêts à
What
mourir et à
set
faire
off the
mourir.
major military
Leur nom
operation
résonne
close to
comme
the
un fantôme
northwest
revenu du
border
néant,
of Burkina Faso?
Wagner. Leur
For
mission,
months, there has been growing
officiellement,
alarm
la
over the
sécurité.
increase in terrorist
Officieusement,
activity
la
close to
souveraineté.
Burkina Faso's
Le Sahel
frontiers.
vient d'entrer dans l'histoire.
Strong action was
Les drapeaux
required in
changent,
response to
les alliances
reports
se
of
fissurent.
ongoing
À
incursions,
Bamako, les
attacks
moteurs
on
hurlent
nearby
comme des tambours de
villages,
guerre.
and the
À Paris,
construction of
la
terrorist
colère
strongholds.
gronde. À
These
Washington,
days,
les
tragedies
écrans
like these
s'allument
happen
en silence.
practically every day.
Et
Perhaps not in
entre les
terms
deux,
of the number of
le
persons
continent se
killed,
réveille enfin,
but
car
definitely in
ceci n'est pas
terms
une
of the
intervention.
incidents themselves.
C'est une provocation.
How far could
Une
this be
ligne
taken?
tracée
To
dans
what
le sable
extent
entre ceux
do
qui
they pose a
commandent
threat to the
et ceux qui
survival of the
obéissent.
government?
Et pour la première
The
fois
military and
depuis
government leadership
l'indépendance,
understood that a
l'Afrique refuse
defensive
d'obéir.
posture alone
Le monde
would not
appelle
be
cela
adequate.
une menace.
The choice to
Mais pour des
begin an
millions
offensive
d'Africains, c'est
operation
une
was made,
promesse, celle
with
de
the intention
reprendre
of
ce qu'on
breaking
leur a
up
volé le droit de
terrorist
choisir, de
networks
parler,
and bringing
de se
regional
défendre.
peace back.
Restez jusqu'à la
The
fin,
operation was
car cette
assigned
fois,
to
ce
the
ne sont pas
41st
les
and
empires qui écrivent
42nd
l'histoire.
Commandos,
C'est
who
le
were
désert
selected for their
lui-même qui
superior
tient la
fighting
plume.
skills
Le
and
jour se
training.
lève sur Bamako,
These
le soleil
battalions were
rouge traverse la
experienced in the
poussière, et
intricacies
sous
of
sa
guerrilla
lumière,
warfare
l'histoire recommence.
and had a track
Au loin,
record of
un
accomplishing
grondement,
missions
ce ne sont pas des
successfully.
orages, mais les
With its
moteurs d'un
ability to deploy quickly
66,
and
les
participate in
villageois lèvent les
high-intensity
yeux.
combat,
Le désert se
the
tait, puis le
99th
métal se
Rapid
pose.
Intervention Battalion was assigned to
Et
provide
le passé
vital
descend.
support.
Des silhouettes
The
apparaissent,
goal of these
casques
forces
noirs,
working
uniformes
together was to
impeccables,
produce a strong
drapeaux sans nom.
strike force that
Sur
could
chaque
carry out
blindé, un nouveau
operations
insigne,
with accuracy
Afrique en
and
Corse.
efficiency.
Mais derrière ce mot se
Thorough
cache une
preparation
vérité connue de
preceded the
tous,
operation.
Wagner. Le spectre
Information
croyant
about
enterré
terrorist
se relève,
movements,
cette fois sous le
positions,
soleil du Mali.
and
Les
fortifications
premières
was
images
acquired by
circulent aussitôt sur les
intelligence
réseaux.
units.
Pas de
The
discours,
plan
pas
was
de
to strike
musique,
unexpectedly
seulement
in
le
order to
bruit des
fool the
bottes et du sable
terrorists
écrasé.
and reduce the
4000
number of
hommes,
soldiers and
armés,
civilians who died.
entraînés,
There were several
disciplinés.
difficulties
Ils ne
because of
viennent
the
pas
border
sauver.
area's difficult
Ils viennent
terrain
s'ancrer.
and
Le
circumstances.
gouvernement malien parle
However,
d'un
the soldiers were
accord
ready.
de coopération
The operation
sécuritaire.
started on June
Les
6,
communiqués officiels
2024,
évoquent la
early
lutte
in the
contre
morning.
le terrorisme,
With the
mais
99th
dans les
Battalion
couloirs du
providing backup,
pouvoir,
the
on
commandos
murmure un autre
advanced
mot,
through dangerous
influence.
country with precision.
Car ce n'est pas une simple
Although
arrivée,
the
c'est un
early
déplacement
fighting was
d'équilibre.
fierce,
Un
it
dessin
soon
du
became
monde,
clear that the
ligne
Burkina
après
Faso
ligne,
forces were
contrat
better
après contrat.
trained and
Dans le
coordinated.
ministère de la Défense, les
Numerous
portes se
terrorist
ferment.
strongholds were
Les
destroyed,
stylos tremblent
and a
dessus du
sizable
papier.
quantity of
Chaque
military hardware
signature
was found.
devient un cachet
The
sur la carte
operation's
du continent.
tone was established,
Et quelque
and
part
the
entre deux
troops' morale
parapheurs,
was
un
raised
secret
by the
fuit.
first phase's
Document
success.
confidentiel fuit, un
Still,
contrat
the
d'État,
victory was only
rédigé
the
sous
start.
couvert d'une assistance
According to
logistique,
fresh
révèle
information,
une clause
the
secrète d'une ligne
terrorists were
budgétaire dédiée aux
reorganizing and
sécurisations
preparing
des
a
approvisionnements
counteroffensive
miniers,
toward the
avec
Ghanaian
des
border
versements programmés vers
to
une
stop
société
any
écran
terrorists from
basée à
escaping
Dubaï.
or from
Personne ne
re-establishing their
confirme,
bases.
personne ne dément.
The
Mais
military
déjà,
leadership
la
had to
rumeur
take
se
immediate
propage
action.
plus vite que les chars,
This
et
resulted
si
in the
le désert
operation's
servait encore de
subsequent
coffre-fort,
phase,
les
which saw a
convois
shift in
se forment à la
emphasis to
périphérie
precise
de
strikes
Bamako,
and aerial
des colonnes de
surveillance.
véhicules blindés
After the
remontent
initial
vers
ground level
Gao, vers
success,
Kidal, vers les zones
tracking
rouges.
and stopping
Pas un coup de
terrorists
feu,
who
pas
were
une
heading for the
déclaration.
Ghanaian border was a
Seulement ce
problem for the
message
Burkina
silencieux,
Faso military.
le gardien a changé.
Hundreds of
Autrefois,
terrorists were on the
Les
move,
routes du Sahel
according
étaient
to
surveillées
intelligence
par des
reports,
drones français.
trying to
Aujourd'hui,
reorganize
elles sont
and get away
protégées par
from the
des hommes
onslaught.
venus de l'Est.
The
Les
military
uniformes
used
changent, les
cutting-edge
trajectoires
aerial
restent.
surveillance
Et dans les
technologies
villages, on
to
regarde
address
passer
this
ces
menace.
camions comme on regarderait passer
As
le temps.
part of the
Le
continuous
président
battle
malien,
against
entouré de
terrorism,
ses officiers,
there have been a lot
signe
of
un
offensive
décret
and
d'accueil.
defensive actions
Sur
in
le papier,
northern Burkina Faso in
mutualité,
recent months.
respect,
When
coopération.
terrorists assaulted
Mais
a
dans
military
les esprits,
facility in
une
Mansilla
phrase
on
retentit,
June
enfin,
11,
quelqu'un est venu quand les autres sont partis.
2024,
Dans les
reinforcements
chancelleries
moved quickly to
occidentales,
stop the attackers from
l'inquiétude
getting
devient
away.
panique.
The
À Paris,
bravery
les
and
analystes
skill of the
parlent de
Burkina Bay
retour d'un empire
forces
masqué.
in their pursuit
À
of
Washington, on
justice and
redécouvre
security
l'expression oubliée
are on display in
zone
this brief
d'intérêt
documentary,
vital. À
which
Moscou,
gives a
on
detailed
se rite.
account of how a
Car pour la première
specialized
fois
unit
depuis la fin de la
carried
guerre
out
froide,
successful
la
strikes
Russie n'avance pas
using
avec des
Burkina
chars,
Faso's
mais avec des
recently
contrats.
acquired
Au
AVEC
cœur de ce jeu
drones
d'ombre,
to stop
le
the
Mali redevient
terrorists
central.
from escaping
Une
through the
nation
Serbe River.
enclavée, épuisée
June
par les
7,
promesses brisées,
2024.
abandonnée par ses
With the
anciens
use of
alliés,
recently
mais riche
purchased
d'un trésor
Akanji
que tous
drones,
convoitent,
the
les
Burkina
ressources
Faso
de
Air
l'Afrique de
Force
l'Ouest.
conducted a number
Or,
of aerial
lithium,
missions.
uranium,
The real-time
autant de veines
intelligence
qui
and
alimentent les rêves
situational awareness
industriels du monde.
that these
Chaque
cutting-edge
cargaison
drones
devient une
provide
déclaration
was
politique,
essential for coordinating
chaque route
ground
minière,
operations
une
in
frontière
such
nouvelle,
difficult and
et
vast
derrière
terrain.
chaque convoi, une question qui contrôle
Because of their
encore ce qui sort
extended
du sol
endurance
africain.
and
Les
high-resolution
journalistes
cameras,
locaux
the
parlent
drones were
d'un
able to
mariage de
continuously
raison.
watch terrorist
Les
movements
diplomates,
and
eux,
make sure that no
évoquent
escape
une
path
nouvelle
went
dépendance.
undiscovered.
Mais sur les murs de
Intelligence
Bamako, des
personnel
graffitis
examined the
fleurissent.
drone's live
Ni
footage
charité,
while they hovered
ni
above the
pitié.
border area.
La souveraineté,
Based on the data.
3 mots, une révolution. Les
A
rumeurs
pro-Russian demonstration in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. The security situation in the country is tense. Islamist rebels now control almost 50% of the country. The demonstrators want more support from Russia. France, its longtime military partner and former colonial power, has failed, they say. That's also how Umar Gansouri sees it. His t-shirts with Putin's prints are selling well.
Le miroir du monde. Ce que l'on voit ici n'est pas une exception, mais une annonce. Le retour de Wagner.
You see, this
Countries. Despite human rights violations,
plus vite que les diplomates, le désert, lui, reste immobile.
recent UN reports accuse the Russian private military group Wagner, created by Russian businessman Yevgeny Prigozhin, of torture, summary executions and sexual violence.
Chaque signature.
They allegedly also carried out a series of bloody attacks on artisanal mines on the border between Sudan and the Central African Republic.
Sur les écrans, 4000 silhouettes s'avancent dans la poussière.
Reports of human rights violations are of less concern, as long as the terrorists are forced back. For example, for Ibrahim Adiaouia,
Aujourd'hui, la présence russe m'inquiète.
we won't find a solution if
Étant en Afrique,
Russia, France or the USA. For many Africans, the question of the calculation is currently clear. The country needs weapons to defeat the insurgents, so they turn to Russia, whether or not there are strings attached.
Dans les couloirs du Quai d'Orsay, un diplomate lâche, nous n'avons pas été expulsés, nous avons été remplacés. De l'autre côté de l'Atlantique, la Maison-Blanche observe sans cligner. Les satellites transmettent, minute par minute, le déploiement des convois russes. Dans les notes internes du Pentagone, un mot nouveau s'impose. Endiguement.
In the sweltering heat of the Sahel, where jihadist insurgents wage a relentless guerrilla war against Burkina Faso's security forces, one figure stands out not just as a commander-in-chief, but as a comrade in arms. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 37-year-old interim president who seized power in a 2022 coup, has repeatedly placed himself amid the chaos of the front lines, a stark departure from the insulated command styles that have long defined many African leaders. Traoré's approach harks back to his days as a low-ranking artillery officer, where he cut his teeth in counterterrorism operations. Before rising to lead the nation, he participated in grueling missions, including the 7-month Operation Otapuanu in Burkina Faso's volatile east, coordinating ambushes and reconnaissance under constant threat. But even after assuming the presidency, Traoré has refused to retreat to the safety of the capital's presidential palace. Instead, he has made unannounced visits to forward operating bases, addressed troops face-to-face, and shared in the hardships that define their daily reality, from dust-choked patrols to the ever-present risk of improvised explosive devices. Just last month, in June 2025, Traoré traveled to Près, a southern town near the front lines, to speak directly with soldiers engaged in operations against insurgent strongholds. Dressed in fatigues and flanked only by a small security detail, he declared the fight a response to aggression, not a choice, emphasizing Burkina Faso's sovereignty in the face of external influences. Eyewitness accounts from troops described the visit as electric. He didn't just give a speech. He listened to our stories, asked about our equipment shortages, and promised reinforcements on the spot. One anonymous soldier told local media, "Such moments are not isolated." In November 2024, a surprise frontline visit reportedly boosted morale so significantly that units pushed back insurgents in a subsequent offensive, reclaiming several villages in the north. This hands-on style contrasts sharply with the leadership norms across much of Africa, where heads of state, often former military men themselves, issue orders from air-conditioned bunkers or opulent offices, far removed from the mud, blood, and exhaustion of the battlefield. In countries like Mali, Niger, and Chad, where similar insurgencies rage, juntas and elected leaders alike delegate the dirty work to subordinates, many of whom endure not only combat but also inadequate supplies, delayed pay, and high casualty rates without their commanders ever witnessing the toll firsthand. Report
Traoré, les réseaux sociaux africains répondent non. Traoré entre deux visions du monde. L'une parle de gouvernance, l'autre de dignité. L'une cherche la stabilité, l'autre la souveraineté. Dans les capitales africaines, vent de souffle, les peuples ne demandent plus la permission de choisir leur gouvernement. Ils signent même leurs alliances, parfois à l'encre, parfois au sang. Et dans ce tumulte, la souveraineté cesse d'être un slogan. Elle devient bannière. Les avions occidentaux tournent au-dessus du Sahel. Les convois russes avancent dans les vallées. Les vrais combats ne sont ni dans le ciel, ni sur le Sahel. Ils se jouent dans les esprits. Chaque discours modifie la perception du monde. Et dans cette guerre de Russie, la Russie gagne non par la force, mais par la nation. À Bamako, les graffitis résultent. Vous aviez aussi cette la voix, celle de l'Afrique, celle qu'elle retrouve imparfaite, le ministère Sahel, le marché financier, les annonces sur les places et ils ne savent pas qu'ils marchent sur la ligne de front. Ils entendent seulement les grondements des moteurs à vent. Le monde, lui, entend autre chose. Son lumière et sa flamme. Au-dessus de cette ligne, grâce à le peuple acclame, satellite Occident. Silence qui suit les alliances militaires est souvent assourdissant et démaquillé. Ce silence s'installe comme une Russie. Mais quelque chose a changé. On ne parle plus seulement de sécurité, on parle d'avenir. Dans les villages du Nord, les patrouilles de soldats étrangers deviennent un spectacle quotidien. Les uniformes ont changé, les checkpoints sont les mêmes. Hier, bleu ciel. Aujourd'hui, sable et cartes. Les visages, eux, sont ceux du peuple. À qui obéissent-ils vraiment? Les paysans du Sahel, là-haut, ils ne tirent pas, mais ils regardent de loin. Ainsi, le sol, c'est là que tout se joue. Sur la côte sèche, du ciel, les ressources de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Ces richesses viennent des stratégies. Chaque découverte géologique transforme la stratégie. Chaque carte minière redessine une stratégie. Les habitants, eux, deviennent militaires de trésors. Les instituteurs de leur pays, les convois militaires et les boutiques restent vides à Bamako, les flancs, les brouillards, les golfs, sous la chaîne, les gouvernements, les transitions souveraines, les citoyens pourtant, au milieu de la fatigue, souffrent d'un deuil persistant. L'indépendance, longtemps disait, mais une construction pierre après pierre, main après main. Les jeunes volontaires du Burkina, les VDP.
Welcome to my channel. Please consider subscribing to stay updated as we bring you. On Thursday, January 25th, 2024, Russia bolstered its military presence in the Sahel region by deploying troops to Burkina Faso. Approximately 100 Russian soldiers have landed in Ouagadougou, initiating the deployment of a 300-member force. Their objectives encompass safeguarding Captain Ibrahim Traore, conducting patrols in high-risk zones, and delivering training to Burkinabe military personnel. The arrival of the initial group of 100 Russian soldiers in Burkina Faso marks the beginning of their deployment, as announced by Africa Corps, the recently formed Russian military unit succeeding the paramilitary group Wagner. This announcement was made via their Yevgeny Prigozhin until his death in August 2023 during a failed rebellion against the Kremlin. The arrival of 100 Russian soldiers in Ouagadougou marks the beginning of a 300-member force assigned with the explicit duty of safeguarding Captain Ibrahim Traore, the transitional president of Burkina Faso and leader of the September 30th, 2022 coup, along with the Burkinabe citizens, as emphasized by Africa Corps. The Africa Initiative has also released images showing the arrival of Russian troops and military aircraft in Ouagadougou. This underscores Russia's increased military footprint and influence in the Sahel region, where Russian forces are already deployed in Mali. This action indicates an increased military presence and influence from Russia.
Officially moved on from the ECOWAS passport. But first, what exactly is ECOWAS? It's a regional group of West African nations that was meant to promote unity, cooperation and mutual support. In reality, though, things haven't played out that way. Instead of building each other up, many leaders within ECOWAS have been more focused on personal gain, misusing resources and ignoring the needs of their people. Tired of that system, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger said, "We're done." They decided to step away, to become independent in their decision-making and start doing things differently, putting their own people first. So, they withdrew from ECOWAS and introduced their own regional alliance, known as AES, Alliance of Sahel States. Along with that move, they also stopped using the ECOWAS passport and introduced a new AES passport for their citizens. This brought about an unexpected challenge. People from these three countries, especially those living abroad like in Europe, used to travel using their ECOWAS-linked national passports. But once they returned home and those passports expired, they could no longer renew them under the ECOWAS framework. The only option was now the AES passport. So what changed? Previously, if you were from Mali, you held a Malian passport recognized by ECOWAS. The same went for citizens of Niger, Côte d'Ivoire and other member states. But now, with the AES in place, those three countries no longer issue passports tied to ECOWAS. The problem was, many international systems weren't ready for this change. When people from Mali, Burkina Faso or Niger tried to travel using the new AES passport, especially to France, they faced difficulties. Immigration authorities said, "We don't recognize this passport." This was a big deal, especially since many citizens from these countries live, study or do business in France. Why did France refuse to accept it? Because these three countries had recently pushed France out of their territories. The relationship had been rocky for a while. People in these nations felt that France was taking far more than it was giving, profiting from natural resources and failing to make a real difference in areas like security. Despite claiming to help fight terrorism, the threat only seemed to grow, not shrink. Better armed and better informed militants raised questions. Where were they getting such advanced tools and data? Frustrated, these nations decided it was time to move on, just like switching doctors when treatment isn't working. They said, "We're paying you, but we're not seeing results. It's time to find our own way." France had close ties with ECOWAS, and now these three countries who no longer work with ECOWAS or France have chosen a different path. They've created their own passport for AES citizens. But France didn't accept this change at first, even denying travel rights to AES citizens who were long-term residents in France. That changed recently. Under mounting pressure, France has now officially recognized the AES biometric passport, which Mali first introduced on January the 29th, 2025. It's now accepted as a valid travel document in French territory, a big win for AES and a powerful symbol of sovereignty and progress. That's what real freedom looks like. You don't wait for permission, you take action. Sometimes, a door that looks shut isn't even locked. That applies to life too. Just because something seems closed off doesn't mean you can't push through. If it won't open, sometimes you just have to force it open. And that's exactly what the people of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger are doing. So what actually happened? On March 10th, Mali submitted a sample of its new passport to the French consulate in Bamako. But due to
state and control from abroad, can sovereignty still exist in practice? For many across the continent, the events in Burkina Faso are being described not just as a military operation, but as the opening chapter of a wider continental confrontation. This is no longer about land or territory alone. It is about digital borders, about who owns the codes, the wires, and the data streams that shape national policy. In this program, we will bring you the full picture. We will examine the targets that were struck in Ouagadougou, the intelligence that was uncovered, the immediate regional response, and the growing diplomatic confrontation with Israel. We will also review how the international media has framed the events and why governments across Africa are now openly debating a doctrine of digital sovereignty, rules designed to ensure that African data remains in Africa. Stay with us as we present verified reports, official statements, and expert analysis. This is not simply another news item. For many, it is a turning point, a moment that may redefine Africa's sovereignty in the 21st century, not on paper maps, but across fiber cables, satellite signals, and the invisible infrastructure of the digital age. If this story moved you, do not let it fade. Say it with me. Africa.
We are thrilled, deeply thrilled, to talk about a defining moment in Burkina Faso's modern history. The handover of a large batch of heavy weapons by the president of Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, to the Burkinabe armed forces. It happened on October 10th, 2025, a date that will undoubtedly be remembered as a milestone in national defense. This is not just about weapons, it is about vision. It represents a decisive step in his ongoing mission to make Burkina Faso a self-reliant, well-equipped, and victorious nation. In a region where insecurity has often crippled development, this act sends a clear message that Burkina Faso is standing tall, that its army is modernizing, and that its people can sleep at night knowing their defenders are stronger than ever before. The new batch of military hardware is nothing short of impressive. Among the assets are 22 B assault guns, modular multiple rocket launchers, 120mm precision and pride. General Celestin Simporé, the Minister of State and Minister of Defense, described it aptly. It is cavalry equipment to provide greater firepower, support to units deployed on the ground, which comes at the right time for the rise in power of the Burkinabe army. This statement reflects a truth many African leaders must internalize, that development and defense must walk hand in hand. What makes Captain Ibrahim Traoré stand out is not merely his courage as a soldier, but his strategic mind as a nation builder. He staffed, the wolves keep their distance. In reinforcing his military, Traoré is not promoting aggression. He is fortifying peace. He is ensuring that Burkina Faso, once vulnerable, now becomes a shield for its people and an example for the region. Let's take a closer look at the advantages of this monumental initiative. Enhanced operational capacity. With advanced artillery and armored mobility, the Burkinabe army can now respond faster and more effectively to security threats across the country. Improved morale of soldiers is demonstrating that African nations do not have to depend on external powers to secure themselves. This is a model of sovereignty, not isolation. Regional deterrence. The modernized Burkinabe army becomes a deterrent against destabilizing forces, ensuring that the borders of the nation and the region are respected. Inspiration to African youth. Young Africans are watching. They are seeing that courage and strategy can transform nations. Captain Traoré's leadership teaches that patriotism is not old-fashioned.
Nous avons le droit de rêver sans pudeur. Autour de lui, les doutes persistent, les critiques fusent, mais le symbole demeure. Non parce qu'il incarne la perfection, mais parce qu'il incarne le refus. Et ce refus, dans un continent longtemps habitué à plier, vaut déjà victoire. Les économistes parlent de chiffres, les politiciens de rapports de force, mais dans le Sahel, l'espoir se mesure autrement, en champ cultivé malgré la guerre,
and he turned to a new partner, the Russian Federation.
En enfant, qui
the
apprennent
arrival
le mot
of firepower.
avenir avant le mot exil.
It started with
C'est pas un miracle,
silence.
c'est une discipline.
No
Car la
press
liberté n'est
releases.
pas un don, c'est un effort
No
quotidien,
ceremonies.
une fatigue heureuse,
Just a
une fierté
military
têtue.
aircraft
Et
landing
si,
quietly
finalement,
under the
la
cover
victoire
of
du
night.
Sahel ne se trouvait pas dans les
Within
contrats
its steel
ni les
belly,
alliances,
Russia's
mais dans
pledge.
cette obstination à rester debout,
Fighter
le
jets,
désert s'étend encore,
armored
mais il
personnel
n'appartient déjà plus
carriers,
au même Dieu.
advanced
Prochaine bataille
anti-air
ne portera
systems,
pas sur les armes, mais sur les armes.
Su-25s,
Quand la poussière
ground attack
retombera,
aircraft
il ne
known
restera
for their
peu,
rugged
être
design
plus
and
de
unmatched
fanfares ni de communiqués.
firepower.
seulement des traces de pas, des silences et un souffle nouveau sur la terre rouge. Ce qu'on appelle le retour de Wagner Mali n'était pas seulement un événement militaire. C'était un miroir tendu au monde, un miroir où chaque puissance a vu son vrai visage et où l'Afrique a vu le sien. Le Sahel, souveraineté, n'est plus un concept. C'est un serment, celui d'un continent qui refuse d'être observé sans être entendu, celui d'un peuple qui comprend que la dignité n'est pas un discours, mais une endurance. L'Afrique ne veut plus être protégée, elle veut être respectée. Elle ne demande pas la pitié, elle exige la place qui lui revient dans le siècle qui suit. Et dans cette exigence, le désert devient mémoire. Il se souvient de tous ceux qui sont venus promettre, prendre, partir. Mais il se souviendra surtout de ceux qui sont restés, de ceux qui ont cru que le sable pouvait redevenir graine. Les anciens disent « Celui qui sème dans le vent récolte des tempêtes, mais celui qui sème dans la dignité récolte des nations. » Aujourd'hui, du Mali au Burkina, du Niger à la mer, le vent porte un mot qu'aucune armée ne peut étouffer. Choisir. Choisir ses alliés, ses frontières, ses rêves, sa vérité. Le monde observe. Inquiet, la Russie parle de stabilité. L'Occident parle de démocratie. Mais les peuples du Sahel, eux, parlent d'existence. Et dans cette conversation, la victoire appartient à ceux qui savent écouter. Car au fond, le message de Wagner ne réside pas dans ses armes, mais dans l'écho qu'il a libéré. L'Afrique ne se laissera plus définir. Alors, lorsque les drapeaux se replient et que les caméras s'éteignent, le désert, lui, reste éveillé. Il garde le secret des renaissances et, dans la nuit calme du continent, une voix s'élève, celle d'un peuple qui ne veut plus survivre, mais vivre debout, digne, libre. Si vous croyez que l'histoire de l'Afrique s'écrit à l'encre de sa propre volonté, partagez cette lumière, abonnez-vous à la faire grandir, et souvenez-vous, le désert a la mémoire longue, mais cette fois, il se souviendra de ceux qui ont osé rester.